Welcome to a new episode of Live Healthy Longer and our exciting podcast series, Life, Past, Present, and Beyond. Have you ever wondered about family members and friends who are no longer alive and with us? And what has happened to them? Well, I've got good news for you, but I'm going to let Dr. Jim share it. This episode of Live Healthy Longer is supported by Amazon Books, who now offer such great reads such as The Real You, Only Better, Love in the Pines, and Rebirth of Aaron O'Brien. Join me towards the end of this episode to tell you more about these exciting new books found at Amazon.com. Now it's time to join our host, Dr. Jim Polikoff, as he leads us on a journey to the world beyond.
Yes, this is Dr. Jim Polikoff, and I'm pleased to share another episode in our special series, Life, Past, Present, and Beyond. We're going to be exploring exciting and fact-based realities of past lives and our spiritual existence in afterlife. We're going to explore reincarnation. Does it really happen, or is it fiction? This episode focuses on soul connection. Have you ever felt the need or desire to connect with your loved ones who've passed away? Well, this podcast might be the first step to get you in contact with those whom you love and miss. My guest for this episode is a well-known and highly respected psychic medium, Kelly Palmatier. Kelly is an evidential medium, meaning her focus is to connect us with family members or close friends who are no longer part of this world, but now exist in another dimension, which I refer to as afterlife. Kelly is an empath, which means feeling the needs of others. She's also a clairvoyant, meaning she physically sees images and hears messages from those who have passed away. Believe it or not, those who have passed not only love you, but are anxious to communicate. Now, some of you listening to this podcast may feel somewhat skeptical, but that's good. I too was skeptical. As a certified nutritionist, I come from a scientific background. I need proof. Fortunately, when writing a book on this subject matter, I researched past life regressionists and psychic mediums. This enabled me to learn what steps I must take to verify their credibility. So I have only invited psychics to this podcast series who provided me with proof that their psychic abilities are credible and accurate. This means that my psychic guests have conducted a reading that actually united me with loved ones. So you can depend upon the fact I have validated the psychic abilities of my guests. In fact, in this episode, you will actually hear some portions of a reading which took place with my deceased mother, grandmother, and other family members. So let's get right into it. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my guest. Welcome, Kelly Palmatier.
Hi, Jim. Great to see you.
And I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Palmatier, right?
Perfect. Yes.
Wonderful. In any case, I just noticed, there's a sparkle in your voice and a twinkle in your eyes when you say, I talk to dead people and they talk back. So anyway, when did you discover you can communicate with individuals who passed away? And why does this bring you joy and satisfaction?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. I actually was psychic for most of my life. I think I was probably born psychic. And then I actively worked at developing my psychic skills all throughout high school and college. But I never really identified as a medium. And it wasn't until 2017 when I got a direct message from Spirit telling me to learn to channel for loved ones who've crossed over. And I was surprised and I asked, how should I do that? And I got a message that to do that, read books, spend time in meditation, and connect with other psychics and mediums. So I started doing all of that right away. By the end of the month, I was channeling. And why does that bring me joy or sparkle? Well, when I got that direct message, it was actually in response to a direct question because I had been sitting at the base of a waterfall, getting in touch with nature and spirit and praying and talking to my loved ones who crossed over. And I asked for a sign. I said, if there's something I can do to help others that I'm not already doing, please give me a sign. And I wasn't expecting to actually hear an answer on the spot, but the answer that I got was something that has turned out to be life-changing for me. So I find so much joy and satisfaction to be able to help others to bring people inner peace and closure.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, you mentioned something, and just for our listeners' education, so to speak, when you mentioned spirit, I spoke to spirit. Who do you identify as spirit?
Well, spirit, that term can be used a few different ways. Sometimes I talk about spirit in general, where it's like the spirit world. And in that case, when I'm writing it out, I'll use a capital S. Sometimes spirit is more like my mother's spirit. And then it's a lowercase s because it's like a particular spirit, but it's not a proper name or something like that. So spirit is kind of one of those loose terms, just like you can talk about enthusiasm. Yeah, that's the spirit.
Uh-huh. Well, but when you spoke to spirits, or you were told when you asked if you could do more in this world,
Yeah.
who told you? In other words, where did you get the signal? Who was it that actually said you need to go with it? We need you.
Right, right. Um, I don't know. At the time, I wasn't a medium, so I was just kind of putting it out there into the universe for anybody, right? And at the time, my grandmother was in spirit, my mother was in spirit, my sister was in spirit, and I have a faith, and so I was getting in touch with nature and with my loved ones who've crossed over and talking to God or whoever might be out there listening, angels, anybody. And so I don't know for sure. I have a strong suspicion that my mother was strongly involved because she's always been a support to me. And, in hindsight, I think that probably my mother was at least one of the influencers at the time.
All right. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, Kelly, you reside and practice in Asheville, North Carolina. Of course, we're all very deeply saddened by the devastation in your community that was caused recently by Hurricane Helene. It's a terrible thing that happened. But on the positive side, Asheville has long been considered as a vortex where Earth's energy is intensified, creating an
Yeah.
environment which is, well, I've been told at least, conducive to spiritual growth. Now, has this vortex served you to enhance your psychic abilities?
It probably has. I can tell you that, when I was growing up, I had certain times in my life where I was very active with my spiritual development. Certainly throughout high school and college, I actually studied parapsychology at the University of Kent at Canterbury in England. And so there were certainly times when I was very involved, but then there was a period of time where I lived in a more rural area in mid-Georgia. And that area, I would say, was clearly not conducive to my continued pursuit of psychic or mediumship matters. I think because it was very firmly part of the Bible Belt. And so I knew that I would get judgment. And, just by not being a very active participant in this particular, not just any Christian church, but the Christian church that this person went to. And if you went to the Christian church on the other corner, well, that's not good enough. There was a lot of judgment that I encountered. So I never felt free or open to really explore my gifts while I lived in that area. But then a few years after moving to Asheville, I started to feel more comfortable. It's funny with Asheville in general, just as the type of community it is, I've said before that whoever you truly are, that's who you can be in Asheville.
Oh,
So
that's
that,
interesting.
yeah, so that really speaks strongly to the community. I don't necessarily know if that's because of the vortex, right? So the vortex is considered to be like an uprush of of energy that may be related to or enhanced by the granite that we have underground, the granite and the quartz in this area. But certainly we know that we've got the beautiful vistas, the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Blue Ridge Mountains. We know that it's a very progressive and open and loving community, an artsy community. And so there are a lot of people that are drawn to this area. And along with that, there are a lot of people who are involved in the healing arts and um, energy-oriented services.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you've had 30 years to date of experience in doing psychic readings. And of course, we can understand why people would once again want to connect with those they really cared about, whether it be a spouse, a parent, grandparent, or close friend who passed away. We can understand that. But why do people who are now in the spiritual realm, they're gone, they're away from this earth, why do they want to communicate with us?
A good question. The short answer is love. You know, so often we're getting these spirits who were an integral part of our lives in the physical world. And they want to come back because we love them and we are grieving for them. They have loved us deeply while they were in the physical world. That love carries on. Love never dies. So why do they come back? They come back because they love us. And if we are reaching out to them or thinking of them, then they are still well connected with us.
Well, that's moving in itself. And it's good to know that they still want to be with us.
Yeah.
Why don't we begin with how you actually conduct a reading? Do your clients need to prepare in any way? I mean, do they bring you names of relatives or friends they want to communicate with? How do they prepare for your reading?
Yeah, so there's really not a great deal of preparation that's involved. I think the main thing is I just want people to be open-minded. But certainly if you've got things in mind, like, I really want to connect with my mother, or I really want to connect with my sister, things like that, you can ahead of time speak to your loved ones. Hey, mom, please show up in this reading. Hey, sis, I'd love it if you stop by. That actually can benefit the strength of the reading. I find that when that happens, a lot of times the spirits will boom, they'll be right in at the beginning of the reading full force, and I'll be able to say, "Oh, you told your sister she better be here."
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can come in with the mind of someone you want to talk to or someone you really miss dearly. And perhaps that's your most important prerequisite. But
Well, it
how do you
is.
go? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just want to kind of mention that it's like there's a balance there though, because I can't guarantee who will come through. That's up to spirit. I can sort of issue the invitation, but ultimately whoever comes through, it's on them. So I just want to talk about that it's really about a balance. Yes, it's great if you can kind of have an idea of I'd like to hear from this person, or I'd really like to get the answer to this question. But then after that, do try to be open. And you mentioned before about, do they come to you with names? I say specifically, please do not tell me anybody's names until I ask for them, or unless I ask for them, because I literally get exact names in about 60% of my readings. And it's so much more fun if I say it first.
All right. Well, that makes sense. So, how do you go about calling in spirits who want to communicate with your clients? I mean, is it like in the movies where the medium goes into a trance? I mean, how is it that you connect with those loved ones that your clients want to meet and hear from?
Yeah, so it's not like Hollywood portrays it, but there are some similarities, certainly. I myself, I mean, there are people who go into trances. I myself don't really go into a trance, but I definitely breathe deeply. I have to raise my vibration. Spirit has to lower their vibration. We'll meet somewhere in between, and I'll pick up on little tidbits, little flashes of information. And then I also have a complex, lengthy list of signs and symbols that I get. So that will help me communicate more quickly, more efficiently. For example, if I feel something on the left side of my head, that's a symbol for somebody who had a stroke, an aneurysm, or a blood clot. So lots of little signs or symbols that that move things along more quickly.
Sometimes you actually feel the vibrations, the things that are communicated to you. You feel the pain of the person that perhaps they went through in their past life. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And again, I like to acknowledge that every medium, every psychic and every medium is a little bit different. So like in my case, I am an empath, so I do feel the emotions of others. I'm clairvoyant, so I psychically see images, clairaudient, so I hear messages, clairalient, so I get psychic smells, clairsentient, so I physically feel the energy, and also claircognizant. So sometimes I just know things.
Well, you
Now,
clearly know things after all of the clears. Sorry, I couldn't help but throw that in, but no, that's amazing. So you have all of your senses are working for you.
yeah, now almost all. I was just about to say the one thing is that for me, clairgustance, which is psychic taste, that one is very rare for me. I've had it happen like just a couple of times. But for the rest of the five physical senses, I pretty much use all of them to some degree or another.
All right. So let's get to the heart of the matter. For those listeners who may have doubts about all of this, and I know there are many who doubt, I want to share my personal experience of a spiritual reading that I recently had with you, Kelly. Rather than talk about it, I want my listeners to actually hear what took place. So we'll begin with one of my first loved ones in afterlife, who Kelly identified for me. What you're about to hear is Kelly's voice during our session.
But I do feel like I'm going to be connecting with a loved one who was sick for a while before they passed. Okay. I'm getting this feeling of someone who may have dealt with a partial paralysis. So this might be from a stroke or something like that, but something where I'm getting this feeling that my body's not quite working the way it should. You understand this?
I do.
How does that make sense?
It makes sense that it would be identical to my grandmother, who suffered a stroke and was paralyzed and was in bed for so many years before she passed, due to that stroke. And literally, my mother had to attend to her, on a regular basis because she couldn't do things on her own.
Okay. All right. All right. So I do feel like your grandmother is here as well. All right, now I'm getting a reference to the chest. To me, this feels more like the lungs. Did your grandmother have trouble breathing towards the end?
She might have. I was away at school, college, most of the time, so I wasn't there at the very end, but that would make sense that she was having that problem.
Okay. All right. She's good, by the way. I feel like it's a shame because, once she had the stroke, she wasn't herself. Um, I feel like even her mental capacity wasn't as strong after the stroke. It wasn't just her physical capacity. It feels like she wasn't quite herself after that. But she's telling me how that she's doing very well and that she is her old self again. And when I talk about her old self, I feel like I want to acknowledge that she's got some spunk to her. I'm getting sort of a fun, feisty feel like when she was in her youth. And then also I'm getting the significance of movement. So I feel like she's showing me herself dancing. So I don't know if she danced before the paralysis or not, but I'm getting this feeling of, look at me now.
Right. The one regret, if I may, shall I express something about my grandmother?
Sure.
Yeah, the one regret that I have carried through my life is that I was not able to really spend a lot of time with her because she raised me when my mother was working, and
Okay.
I didn't really get to spend the time with her when she was really ill that I
Yeah,
should have. I regret that to this day.
sure. Let me see how she wants to respond to that. Hang on a moment. All right. All right. She's coming through with so much love for you. And she's saying first of all, let go of that guilt. But she's acknowledging, she's like, oh, honey, you were off living your life, doing your thing. And I was so proud of you. She wouldn't want you to be sitting at home, sitting with her, spending all this time with your elderly grandmother. She loved knowing that you were out doing your thing. And I feel like this is something that you intuitively knew or that you were told that this was the case. But she's confirming that.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So, Kelly, what you revealed to me in the words of my grandmother was so impactful because for years I carried this guilt that I was out having fun in college while this poor lady who helped raise me during my childhood was suffering. She was immobile with paralysis. I should have been by her bedside. I kept thinking about that, giving her comfort. But here I was just out, having a great old time. So I carried that for years, many, many years. But to learn that it's not what my grandmother wanted or needed, I have to tell you, that was such a relief. I
Yeah.
felt forgiven, and then I forgave myself.
Mm.
So, had this feeling of needing forgiveness from a loved one who passed, does that often happen with your clients?
Yes, certainly there are times when we feel that we need to be forgiven by our loved ones. The opposite is also true. There are plenty of times where we feel that our loved ones may need to apologize to us. And these are the types of things that come through a lot of times in readings. I always ask whenever I'm preparing for my day or for the readings throughout the day, and I'm doing my morning meditation, I always ask that each client hear exactly what they need to hear that serves highest good. So it's quite common that messages of forgiveness or apologies or encouragement and support, all of these types of messages can come through. The main thing is that it's important if you start off with validation, something that's evidential, like the fact that I picked up on the paralysis. That's what made you able to accept the kind words that came afterwards.
Well, that took me over the edge because there was no way that one would know that my grandmother was laying in bed paralyzed. That obviously she had a stroke, but it went further than that, and you were able to pinpoint it. So that was very moving for me. And I knew then you offer a great deal of credibility. So, but you also shared some communications with my mother, and that brought me a lot of comfort as well.
Mm.
So let's listen to another portion of the session that you and I had, and this has to do with my mother.
Just getting my symbol for cancer. So who had the cancer?
My mother?
Okay. All right. That's perfect then, because I felt like I was talking with your mom before. So she just wanted to bring through something that's evidential, so that you'll know it's her. Do you have questions, things you'd like to ask or say?
Well, one of my main interests would be what's it like after you pass on? In other words, I mean, I know the time, I'm relatively aware that time doesn't really exist in afterlife or the beyond or the other dimension,
Oh,
but what happens on a regular basis? Are we just spirits floating around, or are there things that we do? I'm curious about that.
sure. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to have your mom answer that question since we're in the process of channeling her. So I'll just see how she wants to answer that question for you. So hang on just a moment. By the way, she is so proud of you. She just wants you to know she's so proud of you. Um, she says she's always been proud of you, but she loves the way you have transformed your life into the pursuit of knowledge in a subject that you're passionate about in a way that also helps others. She says it's different than what you were involved in so many years ago, and she's always been proud of you, but she really just wants to acknowledge that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, now you wanted to ask your mom what it's like in the afterlife. So let me just get back to that. Your mother is saying that the afterlife is filled with infinite potential, infinite possibility, and it can be just about anything you want it to be. And for her and for most spirits, the way it works is initially, when you first transition into the afterlife, it's more like it has similarity to the way you as a human being, you might experience something in life. So as a human being, you would experience yourself as here I am, and here is this other spiritual entity coming to visit me, and here's this beautiful scenery that we're seeing. But after you've been in the afterlife for a while and you've experienced this infinite love and light that's all around you, you start to understand that it is less about this is me and this is somebody else. And you start to understand that really this is all of us. And so then it's much more expansive. And the time does not pass in the same way that it does in the physical world, but it is expansive and filled with this lightness and love and joy. And it's more cerebral, ephemeral, abstract most of the time once you've been there for a while. However, at any point, whenever you have the slightest bit of desire, you can make it more tangible or more experience-like, such as you can go and visit a loved one and watch over what's going on with them, give a little energetic nudge here and there to help out to the extent possible. You can see visual images or have experiences that mimic the way we would experience things with the five physical senses, and but it's in a much more elevated way. So it's really the best of both worlds. You get to have these experiences, but you also enjoy this freedom of love and light and expansiveness um, that is less delineated.
So, Kelly, you were able to provide me with an insight of what it's like in afterlife through the eyes of my mother. Since you've channeled so many of these afterlife sessions with clients, I'd like to know how you visualize what happens in life after death. Can you share that with us?
Sure. So I believe that everybody's experience is a little bit different. Just like in the physical world, we all have slightly different experiences living here in the density of the physical world. I believe that when we cross into spirit, our experiences are all a little bit different. Certainly, we're going to follow some of the same themes. Like, for example, Raymond A. Moody's book, Life After Life, goes through those themes. A lot of times people might see the bright white light, the tunnel, the loved ones greeting us. There are going to be some certain themes. But then when spirits actually are fully transitioned into the afterlife, I believe that their experiences there really are influenced by their own personalities and what they love in life. What they loved in the physical world, they can have similar experiences in the spirit world.
So, and you've learned much of this. I would imagine that your clients have shared some of this with you, and some of it you felt yourself. Um, is this something that people should prepare in terms of what it's going to be like for them in afterlife? Does this give them some hope that things aren't going to be as bad as they are here on Earth, but they have a lot to look forward to? Because I think you mentioned to me when we talked that, we really don't feel any real evil or demonic things. We basically, it's all about happiness and love. Am I right?
In the afterlife?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I think everybody's experience is going to be unique to them. And obviously, whenever I'm doing work, I work with my spirit guides and angels, and I ask for only positive messages that serve highest good. I ask to connect only with spirits of high vibration or benevolent intent. So let's say, just play the devil's advocate, um, and if there were some negativity or some dark energy, I would not be exposed to it in my readings, and my clients in my readings would not be exposed to that. Now, having said that, I do believe that there are spirits who will continue to learn and grow on the other side. So, for example, if there's somebody who has caused great hardship on others, where in the traditional sense we might think that they should go to hell, then I think those are the individuals who are going to be experiencing a more, for example, the acknowledgement of seeing the damage that they've caused to others and feeling and perceiving and experiencing some of that, so that they are in a place of remorse to open them up towards greater learning and greater growth.
So what it boils down to is it makes it take them a little bit longer to learn how to overcome what they did in a past life to prepare them more for future lives, which obviously gets us into reincarnation. And many say that during afterlife, and see if you feel the same, that we carefully scrutinize our past lives to learn how we can improve during the next life. What are your thoughts about reincarnation?
Well, my personal thought is I do believe that we reincarnate. But I also believe that we can take each life as its own story. So it's kind of like when you've got these books that have, the series where you've got maybe a trilogy. Each book has its still complete story from beginning to end. And so I feel that when we are in the physical world, when we're incarnated, we don't have to look back to our past lives, what's the reason I'm here? I think that you can kind of look forward as to here's what I'm experiencing now. What do I need to get out of this? What can I learn? How can I grow? How can I be the best version of myself?
So, how do we go about this learning? You have any intuition in that, in terms of that? We're here, we're in afterlife, and we're preparing for a new life. I would assume that we probably have an opportunity to choose what life we want to bounce into the next time around, based on, our past lives. We haven't done this. Maybe we haven't felt enough pain. We need to feel more pain. Maybe we need to feel more happiness. You believe are able to choose the lives that we're going to go into in the future?
I personally believe that we can. We can choose our next incarnation. And I don't necessarily believe that we would ever say something like, we need to feel more pain. We haven't felt enough pain in the past. But what I do think is that we may realize, oh, we really need to focus more on, learning this particular lesson. And therefore, I'm going to choose this life to go into, even though it will involve more pain.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I think it's more about what they need to learn and what they need to get out and what will help their healing, their growth, and their knowledge and advancement.
Okay, so let's turn to another aspect of this because obviously I have to say I was very impressed by our session and your credibility, how accurate you were about my loved ones and what they wanted to communicate to me. So the question really is, here you are in Asheville, North Carolina, and but you've got clients from throughout the United States. So I'm curious how this all works. I mean, are online readings like via Zoom, are they as effective as a reading that you would have in person?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to all of my international customers as well, because I have clients all over the world. But yeah, so remote sessions, it's interesting. When I first started doing these readings, I used to think that that psychic energy was like body odor. The closer you are, the stronger it gets. But I since very quickly learned that energy is is very fluid. And you think about it, if a spirit can transcend space, time, and the afterlife to get a message to us, they're not going to have any problems with a phone line. So really, it's just a matter of being able to connect and send that intention, that energy, no matter where you are. However, having said that, I did actually do the math one time where because anytime I'm doing a mediumship reading, I'll jot down little notes in my notebook as I go along. And typically, when I get an exact name for somebody, which for me is my favorite, I'll do a little circle around that name. So one day, I decided to do the math and I actually tracked for an entire month. I looked at every reading that I had done remotely and every reading that I had done in person. And I counted how many exact names I got. And what I found was, even though I had always perceived that they were exactly identical in strength, in that 1 month that I tracked, I actually did get 12% more exact names in my in-person sessions. Now, why is that? I don't know. One of the theories that I have is that when you're in person, it is just a little more personal. And when it's more personal, you just have a little more fun and you relax and you open up a little bit more. Definitely that feeling of being open, that makes a huge difference.
So I think, and I understand as far as getting names, and I've seen some of the things, a video that someone did of you where you were actually able to identify the names of different people in the audience, which again is certainly something not usual, shall we say. I can understand being in person, but what about when you're doing these online, shall we say, sessions? Uh, I'm assuming that you probably get the people who have passed away, the loved ones. I'm sure you get the correct ones. Am I right? Even if you may not get the name, you know, 80, well, shall we say 12% of the time, in most cases, you're going to find out who the loved one is, and you're going to be able to bring them and unite them with your client.
Well, it is a process. And every reading, every session is a little unique, just like every client is a little bit unique. Now, one thing I like people to know is that the very best psychics and mediums are typically about 80 to 90% accurate. So you shouldn't go into a session with any medium and expect every single thing that they say to be 100% on target. But having said that, most of the time we connect pretty well with the ones that you want to connect with. And most of the time we get strong evidential details, such as a spirit's appearance, their personality, how they passed, or exact names.
All right. So let's turn to another subject, something that I found a little bit fascinating. It's interesting that you also serve as a psychic detective. Do you actually help in solving crimes for law enforcement?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm not going to take credit for solving crimes. I'm for entertainment, just like any psychic or medium is technically for entertainment, even though we do bring people peace and inspiration and inner healing and all that. But the fact is, you know, and I know that whatever information comes up from me is not going to be admissible in court. Therefore, you cannot solve a crime. A psychic can never solve one. But what I have done is I have worked directly with law enforcement where they have reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you help us with this case?" And in those situations, what I do is I give them all the information that I have, everything that comes to me, everything that I see, feel, hear, etc. And then it's up to them to go and use that information in a way that moves the case forward.
All right. Well, that makes sense, but that should be a lot of fun, right? I mean, uh, we see so many, of course, we've seen television programs and movies about how, psychics find lost bodies or dead bodies that no one else can find. But I can see where all of this would tie in, particularly when you get help from the afterlife. Uh,
Yeah, just a couple days ago, I had somebody come to me for a reading, and I was able to give the exact name of the murderer. So it was pretty wild.
wow, that is something.
Yeah.
So, after hearing about the process of mediumship, there might be some of our listeners who feel they have intuitive abilities. My daughter, for example, she has terrific intuitive abilities. But I understand you offer an online program for it's called a psychic development mentorship, meaning you can help them enhance their psychic skills. Can you tell us how this works?
Sure. So I believe that everybody has some level of psychic ability. It's just like intuition. We all have some intuitive sense. It's just that some people have a stronger natural sense than others, and then some of us actively work at developing it. When I'm doing the psychic mentorship, what I do is I guide people through the process, and I start off with an interview where I learn all about my client. Where are they in the process? If they've already, had all of these encounters and they're already seeing ghosts and they're already talking to people and getting evidential, where are they in the process? What are their goals? What do they want? And then I meet them right where they are and I say, okay, well, you might want to consider this or consider that. When it comes to developing skills, one of the things I'll just give you a quick little tip that anybody can use. Let's say you want to get stronger with clairvoyance. Well, clairvoyance is the skill of psychic seeing. So what you want to do is you can take an object, any object, like here I've got this little crystal, and
Hmm.
what you can do is you can very intensely focus your vision onto this object. And you say, okay, well, I see the facet here is reflecting the light more brightly here, and it's got the rough edge here. And notice all these little details visually. Then close your eyes and pull all those details into your mind's eye. Remember all those visual details and try to see that in your mind's eye. What that does is it works out the same muscle that you would use when you're seeing things psychically.
Well, that's interesting. So let's say someone really says, I think I've nailed it and I really have an intuitive ability. Can you teach them how to become a medium? Yeah. So that's part of what you offer, right?
Oh yeah. Like
Okay.
I said, I'll meet them wherever they are.
All
So
right.
if they're already a practicing medium and they want to build their business, I can talk with them about that as well.
Okay. Well, good news for those of listeners of you who are or feel you may be psychic or have some intuitive abilities. You might want to get in touch with Kelly about that. But speaking of getting in touch, let's reveal how our listeners can reach you to utilize your services. Your practice is called Channeling White Light. And your website is, again, right with your name, challengingwhitelight.com. So
Channeling.
now we're going to be giving your channeling.
Um,
I have one of those things today, channeling your white light. Okay. But it's not it's channeling white light. I'm going to pick
yeah,
that up again, Kelly. We're going to
sure.
cut that out.
Okay.
So, Kelly, let's reveal how listeners can reach you in utilizing your services. So, your practice is called Channeling White Light, and your website is channelingwhitelight.com, correct?
Yes.
So, we're going to be giving out your website address again, as well as your phone number, because that's all going to be found on our website, not just in this podcast. So all you need to do is come to jamespolikoff.com and you're going to find all the things you need to learn about Kelly and how to get in touch with her. So are these the best ways to reach you or any other suggestions?
Well, I'm certainly on all the major social media platforms, but my website is the number one way. You can learn all about my services and sliding scale rates, read my reviews, watch video excerpts of my actual readings, see my full availability, book appointments, etc.
All right. So we're going to be repeating it again, even after this, channelingwhitelight.com.
Yes.
To say this has been an enlightening episode is amazing. Actually, it's an understatement. Your guidance have been so helpful to me personally, and I so much appreciate it. I know my audience also appreciates your very special insights. So we're going to let them, those who are interested, get a hold of you because I have to tell you, you're very impressive. I'm not only very impressed because I've met others in your field before, but you seem to really nail it right on the head. So anyway, it's a great experience, and I thank you so much for being with us.
What a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. My thanks to Kelly Palmatier. It's Palmatier, by the way, and I'll be back with foods that feed your intuition.
You can discover more about Kelly Palmatier at her website, channelingwhitelight.com. You can also find added information for psychic medium Kelly Palmatier on our website, jamespolikoff.com. And you can find many other podcasts, blogs, and healthy living information. Now, here are some great books you can find on Amazon.com. We'll begin with Dr. Polikoff's new book, which has received rave reviews. Live Healthy Longer with Dr. Jim. This terrific book unlocks the secrets to longevity and how your life with loved ones can become more intimate. Again, that title is Live Healthy Longer with Dr. Jim. And be sure to add Dr. Jim so that you can find it easy on Amazon. And here's a hot new title on Amazon, Ignite Your Inner Flame. It was written by none other than Dr. Gloria Polikoff. When I say hot, believe me, I mean it is hot. Again, that's Ignite Your Inner Flame. And if you're interested in plastic surgery, The Real You Only Better is a must read. This book empowers women to stand up for their true inner beauty and choose cosmetic procedures that will fulfill this promise. These three terrific books can be found on Amazon.com. You can also come to our website, jamespolikoff.com, for more information. That's James, Polikoff.com. Now back to Dr. Jim and his healthy food tips.
I want to thank Kelly Palmatier for bringing me closer to the ones who have passed that I love dearly. And if you want a psychic medium to bring you in touch with the ones you miss and love, Kelly is a great choice. When concluding my interview with Kelly, I promised to reveal foods that feed your intuition. The definition of intuition is an ability to understand or know something immediately, which is based on your feelings. So, are there actually some foods that are healthy that can stimulate your intuition? I'm a certified nutritionist and can assure you the answer is yes. The first is cacao. Cacao is spelled C-A-C-A-O. Think of hot chocolate. So how can cacao increase intuition? The cacao bean is jam-packed with antioxidants and minerals that juice up the immune system and stimulate your brain. Fatty fish. I don't mean fish that are fat, but fish that actually contain the healthy fat. We're talking omega-3 fatty acids. Fish like salmon, tuna, and sardines contain fatty acids which help you prevent cognitive decline while stimulating your brain. Beets are known to open up your third eye, which represents mystical intuition and insight. Plus, beets contribute to the health of your organs, so you can trust your gut feelings. And one more intuition stimulator is avocado. Avocados are high in alpha-lipoic acid, a powerful antioxidant. By reducing oxidative stress and toxic elements in your body, you're able to more clearly interpret messages sent to your psyche. So why not stimulate your intuitive powers while eating healthy, nourishing foods? Please take a few minutes to read my latest blog, Foods That Feed Your Intuition. Simply go to jamespolikoff.com and click on blogs. And remember that a new episode of Live Healthy Longer is available each and every Wednesday. In the next episode of our series, Life, Past, Present, and Beyond, we're going to continue exploring some of the mysteries of afterlife. And remember that a new episode of Live Healthy Longer is available each and every Wednesday. In the next episode of our series, Life, Past, Present, and Beyond, we're going to continue exploring some of the mysteries of afterlife. So plan to tune in every Wednesday for a new podcast that might just blow your mind. This is Dr. Jim Polikoff. Thanks for joining me, and I wish you a healthy, happy, long life.